The world is a better place because you are here to join us. My name is Matt Brown, and I am the host of the Productive Conversations podcast. And it is Thursday, November 7th, 2024. We're all here to reflect and react and recap the 2024 United States presidential election, where Donald Trump will become the 47th president of the United States. So we will discuss that. And I just want to say, don't forget to like and subscribe to the Productive Conversations podcast on all podcasting platforms and YouTube. And don't forget to check out exclusive content regarding the show across all social media platforms. We're on Instagram at Productive Conversations Podcast, X at Prog Hobble Pod. We're on TikTok at Productive Conversations, and Facebook and YouTube at Productive Conversations. And as always, don't you forget, and we'd like to thank our presenting sponsor, Magic Mind. Magic Mind is a green tea shot elixir that, due to its special recipe of nootropics and signature vitamins, this special green tea shot will allow you to have a better mental performance, will allow you to have less stress, it will create more energy, and it will create a better vitality for your life. And ultimately, this will enhance your day-to-day operations. And you take it before the day begins, and you will see the very big benefits you will get out of taking some Magic Mind. You can check the link and description below, but also go to magicmind.com/PCMB. Use discount code PCMB20 for 48% off your first subscription and 20% off your first one-time purchase. And with me today to discuss the election of Donald Trump, we have Dolo Ren, the co-producer of Productive Conversations, and Ryan, the longtime co-host of Productive Conversations. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Not that we could have gotten away with not covering this, unfortunately. But thank you for having us all the same.
Seriously, thank you for joining. For us and for everybody listening, returning listeners, new listeners to this is just a reflection of what happened. And I know that it was quite a decision for various people across the United States and definitely the world to witness it as well. I know not everybody's happy about the reaction, and I know a lot of people love the reaction. And quite frankly, there's a lot of people who don't care. But ultimately, this is a very big deal. This is our biggest story yet on Productive Conversations, and we are going to simply sit down and talk about it and do the essence of what Productive Conversations is. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. So I just want to start this conversation, this productive conversation, by just saying a few words of what I thought, right? This podcast is 4 years old, 441 episodes. It's been quite a 4-year run for the first 4 years. I think we finally found our grasp and we know what we're doing. And our ultimate goal is to make this a major brand across the entire world. And we are going to join those other big media outlets, no matter what. And on our way to making that happen, on our way to growing this great platform that I'm proud of, and the two most important people in this platform are here, it's been something else to create this brand and business. We still have a lot of hard work ahead of us and a lot of work to do, but we are just thankful that we got to do it, especially in this country of ours. And even though after you record your pods, after you prep, after you make graphics, after you make reels, after you make short form videos, after you make memes and all of that, after the work is done, you're back to being a normal citizen in the United States that we are lucky enough to be a part of. We live our normal lives. We have our family. We have our personal lives. And then we go with all the various obstacles that come with that. And believe me, I'm just like any other person who has been hurting, who's been in the struggle, especially in the last 4 years in this administration. And it was my first time in the Biden administration to really know about the struggle. As somebody who, as you can see, I am a very diverse ethnic person. The words of my grandfather, a hybrid. I will stick with that. I'm a hybrid person. And I was fortunate enough. I grew up in a middle class. I grew up pretty privileged looking back. And I was lucky. Even though my family and my parents did a great job early from the start to see the various types of lives any person could live growing up in the tri-state area in the United States, predominantly in Connecticut, seeing what it's like being around those well off and those who weren't. It just naturally was like that. And I had a good education. I worked hard. I made good money to start it off. And things were looking pretty promising, like any other person who works hard, who specifically went through college, right? And then, well, just like all of us, we had a turn. We had the pandemic. I was having a really good career in the media in New York City, living the dream, just about ready to accomplish those goals and get to the next phase of my life to do that. Living in New York or Jersey City and prospering there and whatever that American dream could be. And then, well, pandemic hits and gotta restart. By the time the pandemic hits, Biden goes into office. I start this podcast. The 5th ever episode, now around 440, was about Biden winning. And well, in those 4 years, just like hundreds of thousands to millions of other people, I had quite my journey, right? After working great corporate media jobs and working on set and having the stellar resume, life kicked me in the ass. I got punched in the face. And for the first time, I learned what it's like in these 4 years. I know what it's like losing jobs, getting laid off, getting fired, applying for unemployment benefits, applying for EBT cards, losing an apartment, and switching state to states, and having your issues finally hitting you in the face no matter what. And I'm in my 20s at this point, and mom and dad can't help me besides sheltering me. And this 4 years was quite a journey. And I get it. Most people have done much worse. And I feel and empathize with them. But I saw finally what it's like to be on your own in this country and truly making ends meet. And I just didn't have any, I did not have somebody who could financially support me. It was only me. Didn't have parents to give me money anymore like I used to. It's me. It's on me. And with that, your bills get higher. You can't make your car payments. You can't make your student loans. You can't pay the rent. You know what it's like to have people chase after you for that? Having overdrafts on a weekly basis, having certified letters. Imagine getting a knock on your door and you have a letter hand given to you by the mail carrier, making all these problems adding to it. And yeah, I was overwhelmed and almost gave up many a times. But it wasn't for this show and also realizing the great support system I have that I'm so lucky to have, that I finally feel like myself for the first time pre-pandemic. And of course, you could blame some of that on me. There is no doubt in my mind that I'm at fault for some of the reasons and my problems. I'm not blaming the government. I put myself in that position. It was on me. But given the hopes and the supports and also having these struggles both in the last 2 administrations, you notice who helped you and who didn't. And well, there's no doubt in my mind that the new person coming into the presidency, there is no doubt that he needs to be held accountable for the stuff that he said. And I feel for the people who genuinely have a good reason to be nervous for what he's about to do. For all the people in the LGBTQIA plus community, for those people in Gaza, for the Muslims, for all ethnic backgrounds, and most importantly, the women who might have their rights on the line. There's no doubt, and you're justified to feel the way you feel. But also, We have to reflect on what got us here. And we have to remember why we're in this position in the first place and what the heck happened. How did we get in this position? And while we need to hold the new leader in charge accountable, his whole cabinet, and what seems to be a brand new House and Senate, you also have to remember they're just words. We have to remember that people had to do what they had to do to get elected. And I get it. There's plenty of examples they might stand on their business. But at the end of the day, the people who really will have your back, just like me who went through his struggles, they will have your back no matter what, even if you feel there needs to be a new change coming. And at the end of the day, to realize, and as I mentioned, why did we get into the position that we are in? Well, I'll be blatant in this case. For the side that lost, the Democratic Party, they have to reflect, and these are the reasons why that they have the results that we have today. Why the Democratic Party lost the White House, lost the Senate, and it looks like they're losing the House. Ultimately, the party was unprepared. The Democratic Party, in my opinion, does not know what the average American's issues and concerns are. And at the end of the day, the Democratic Party picked a candidate that could not go toe-to-toe with who wound up winning the White House, in my opinion. There were moments and examples where maybe the pandering came off cringe, the pandering turned people off, and well, again, use your head. Why did the Democratic Party lose? Well, here's my opinions on it. And if you see, it was all right there from the start. At this point, you can't come at the Electoral College. You can't come at voters who come from a certain ethnic background or who are a certain person. You can't come at people's morals because of who the person voted for. Despite the various horrible things that the winner has said and the party, at the end of the day, it's just somebody's voting decision. You do not hate the person for that. At the end of the day, and I'll say it one last time, we saw a marketing genius win over people and complete, if not it is the greatest comeback in American politics history. Everything's going to be okay. Don't hate somebody because who they voted for, and just be happy you have somebody in your life. And someone just like me, who has been through the ringer like anybody else, despite the assistance or lack of assistance the government has given between these two administrations for me, all that mattered was my family, real friends, and my support system. And I want to leave it at that as we continue this productive conversation, that no matter what, no matter how you feel, you know that there's somebody out there who gives a shit about you, who gives a damn about you. And there are decent enough people who will even do that for strangers. Remember that. And as long as you're a good, real, decent human being, there is somebody, even beyond the government, who is looking out for you. So that's what I want to start with. And the floor is yours. And at the end of the day, remember, for all those listening and watching, these are 3 mature, handsome, strong men who know that it's not personal and it's just a conversation. And we're here to learn and live the essence of what productive conversations are.
Hey, watch out there, Matt. You calling me handsome, I might start blushing, and then I might get off the rails, and then I don't know what to. You already got me tongue twisted already, man. All right. So, thank you, Matt, for sharing your experience for the past 4 years. I think everyone's personal experience means a lot. I've heard sentiments of people saying that in like liberal versus conservative debates, with people saying like, oh, your personal experience really doesn't matter that much. It's this, is that. I kind of don't agree with that. I do think personal experiences do matter a lot when it comes
Mhm.
to who you check off in that voting booth, and if you even go to the voting booth, because like apparently it was like 15 million less voters this year.
Mhm.
I just don't have the source on that. I wouldn't be
I've
able to
seen that. I've
confirm
seen
that.
something to that effect as well. It was less voters overall this year. But Trump kept quite a few of the. I mean, I think he went down was I think 10 million overall, and
Mm,
Harris went down more than that, obviously, from what Biden had. But last time was
right,
like
right.
82 million to 81 million, and this time it was 70 to some 60 something. So yeah,
Yeah,
it
wasn't
was.
Biden like the most voted for
Yeah, well,
president?
actually, they both were. So the only reason that Trump wasn't the most voted for person in political history the last time was because he lost and Biden got more votes.
I see, I
So
see.
no
Okay.
one has ever gotten more votes than those two got in 2020. So that, just a little historical fact. Both of those men received higher vote totals than anyone previously had, and as we saw with this election, that record remains. Uh, so
Yeah, no, that context helps the conversation for sure. Um, yeah, and I think we're all in agreement that like nobody's really here for a debate. Uh, I think we can all say how we feel and say what we think about it. Uh, honestly, it's for me, like I've been on the show before, giving my opinion and telling everyone that I did prefer Trump over Kamala Harris as a candidate. And what what really surprised me, if anything at all surprised me, the amount of less voters overall did surprise me. But being in the line, it kind of seemed like, I don't know, like because I was there. I was at
mhm.
City Hall. Um, the lines were kind of crazy, and looking at, I really had to look up, hearing that stat that there was less voters in general. I really had to look that up. That kind of shocked me. I was like, wait, wasn't there like record-breaking early voting this time?
Mhm.
I literally looked back at it. A few places I was able to see that was the case for was like Maryland,
Mhm. Yeah.
Kentucky, places in New Jersey, CT, South Carolina, North Carolina, Indiana, Georgia, Northern New York, I guess. A bunch of places that, were reporting record-breaking numbers for early voting. And to see that there's less voting overall, it's kind of shocking. Maybe both can be true at the same time. Is
They
this
can, yeah. They could both be true. You can have more people vote early and less people show up at all. And
that must
so
have been
you
what
have that.
happened.
I mean, obviously there's going to be busier precincts depending on where you go. Nobody was at my polling location.
Hmm.
And Kamala Harris, by the way, performed, I want to say, was it 4 points worse than Hillary Clinton did in Virginia, which is where I vote. So, and then my old state of New Jersey, where I spent some significant time. Trump lost that as well, but he lost by 5 points, which I'm not certain that's ever happened in a presidential election in New Jersey. Just to be truthful with you, I don't know that a conservative party has ever come within 5 points of the leader in New Jersey,
Hmm.
at the presidential
Yeah.
level. Obviously, they've had conservative governors and whatever. That's different.
I listened to a lot of
Yeah.
local sports talk about that.
Hmm.
And I know this is just sports talk, but just going off of those type of callers who were able to sneak in their opinions. There's one particular host I love. He's on Saturdays. And he talks about that was his time to talk about Trump then, but he pointed that out. He basically was saying, "Man, every time I go up in Bergen County, New Jersey, the amount of Trump signs that I saw." And so hearing that stat, that makes a lot of sense now.
Yeah, Dolo, sorry, finish what you were saying. I don't want to jump in on your toes, but
No, no, no. Yeah, no, I appreciate the context. Like yeah, that was on my mind, thinking about this election and how it went down. And and then looking at I guess the breakdown by race and by gender. Yeah, I think there's like a story to tell right there. It seemed that for this election, it seemed that the young men, and also when broken down by race, it was 53% of people that voted for Trump that were classified under other as far as race. So that's like
Mhm.
anything other white, anything other
Other
than
than white,
white,
yeah.
black,
But yeah.
Hispanic, and Asian. So yeah, and also
That has to change, by the way. There's more than others. You need to include all
that
those
is kind
ethnic
of crazy.
breakdowns.
Yeah, like because what does that
Whether
mean? Other? How many races does
Yeah,
that
it's
incorporate?
yeah. I think other a lot of times is used for people who identify as multiple races.
Hmm.
And so a lot of people check other in that context, but that's not clear. Like that's not clear on
yeah.
the
Yeah.
instructions or anything. So
Mhm.
other can mean whatever you want it to mean, truthfully.
Yeah, I
Um,
just wanted to say that. Like, basically, if you could see, my gripe is the government's on this one beyond the two
well, yeah,
candidates, even
that's
though
like
the thing.
that's just the people who printed the
Yeah.
the exit polls who did
Basically, any
that.
shot I
But
can get with this one, I'm going to
Yeah.
take.
I just want to. I think you're about to probably say this, Dolo, but to
Uh-huh.
add one last thing of context before you finish off your spot here.
Go ahead.
Um, this is the first time since the 70s. I don't remember exactly which one, so I won't say a specific date, but it's the 70s for certain that Latino voters broke Republican. I don't know if it's Latino men specifically or all Latino. I don't know that particular breakdown. But Donald Trump has performed better than any Republican since the 70s with Latino voters as
After
yeah,
his incident at the rally
right,
too, that's saying
right,
something.
in 2024. Yep.
Yeah.
So there's that. But
Yeah, no,
sorry,
it's
continue.
no, it's all crazy. It really is. And one thing I did notice to add to that is it seemed that people with no college degree out of the people
Mhm.
that voted, it was 54% that voted for Donald Trump. So to me, the way I see it is that like the tail of the tape, I guess you would call it,
Mhm.
is it seems young men, a mixed bag of almost every minority, and people that didn't graduate college kind of got this one for Trump.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of that is overlap. I think a lot of it is young men of every background who didn't go to college. I think that, young men is the key. So I'll just use that to transition. I think that this is about men and women. I don't know that it needs to be any deeper than that. I know in 2016 they thought maybe it was the college degree. In 2020 they thought it was, race exclusively, and I think we were wrong all those times. I think it was always men and women. 2016 being the only
Seems like
time
that,
that
yeah.
might not have been true yet because they hadn't really finished their plan that they have since now executed flawlessly in terms of their strategy. But I think it's men and women. I'll say a couple things. I want to respond to some of what Matt said real quick. There's a quote. Since I'm the Democrat here, the Kamala Harris voter. I'll use one quote because I'm a shitty elite, and then I'll go move on. And Maya Angelou, you probably know her books from the banned books in your library. She said, "When people show you who they are, believe them." So you take that how you want to take that about whether or not rhetoric means anything. That's She's a pretty smart woman. I think we should listen to her a little bit. When people tell you who they are, you believe them.
Mhm.
So the issue that I see here, I mean, yes, Biden should have dropped out earlier. We should have had a full primary. Harris, had she won that primary, would have hopefully seemed to be more authentic to people or whatever, or someone else would have won with maybe less of the Biden, connection, and that could have been a little bit easier to separate from the stuff that people didn't like about Biden, yada yada yada. I think all that is part of it. Like you can point to all that as being bad, and I think we should be like, oh, that was a bad idea. That was a bad idea. I don't think changing any of that would have changed the outcome of this election, and the reason for that is I've seen this maybe 260 times. Like Kamala should have gone on Rogan, should have just gone on to Austin and done it, and I think she should have done it too, by the way. But I was thinking, just think about that. Joe Rogan has had Trump on, obviously. He's had Vance on. He's had Musk on at least 2 dozen times. Like, I mean, he endorsed Trump. Dana White, his boy, and obviously Trump's boy as well. That Kamala showing up one time, adding that to the one time Bernie Sanders was on there in what, 2016? Like that's two
2020.
well, yeah, so that's two Democrats in 4 years. That group of people wasn't going to be persuaded by a one Kamala Harris appearance on Joe Rogan. The Joe Rogan voter was not going to say, I saw Kamala on Rogan. I actually like her. It's not what they're going to say.
Now, would you have trusted Joe Rogan handling that interview, like in
I mean,
general, just with
it would
his
have been the same as his Trump interview. Like, I don't think he would have been like specifically harder on Harris, but the reality is that his interviews are. No, actually, I'll say I don't give a fuck. They're not informative. They're entertainment. No one, most of the people on that show are making it up. Most of what he says on that show is ridiculous. He's apologized for the ridiculous things he said on the show. Um, and that's where the real problem is. Young men across, young men and older men to a lesser extent, across races, across income levels. That's where they're getting all of their info and all of their entertainment. The Democratic Party has completely seceded, or ceded rather, the ground when it comes to social media and podcasts for men. They just did. So you're a young man. Maybe you're a young man in Matt's shoes. I can just say personally, I didn't have the same go of it as Matt has had the last 4 years, but I would say roughly half of the things he said happened to him happened to me as well in the last 4 years. It was not a particularly good 4 years. But truthfully, you're going through a hard time for 4 years, more than 4 years for many people. You are looking for something to change, and you're not going to get it from any of the politicians. Let's just be clear. But you'll hear Andrew Tate talk about how you can be the alpha in your life. You hear Jordan Peterson, and he starts off real simple with clean your room, take control of your space. Okay, great advice, and then it moves over and over and over, and now you're at the point where women are property of their husbands. And I know this sounds hyperbolic to a lot of people, maybe to both of you. I don't believe it is hyperbolic. Like I said, Maya Angelou said it best. When people tell you who they are, believe them. The Democratic Party, if it wants to have any future after this, and might be too late. I'm fully willing to admit that it might be too late. They need to figure out who their Andrew Tate is. Who's their Jordan Peterson, their Ben Shapiro, their Joe Rogan? Who are the people, and not politicians, not Bernie, because Bernie put out a ridiculous tweet earlier today that has absolutely no bearing on reality. So Bernie's cooked. I know everybody likes him. That's fine. Continue to like him. He's a good politician, but he's not the answer to this. In addition to being 900 years old like Joe Biden is, he's wrong on this one. It's not politicians. It's media people. You need media people, and you need the media people to be the way that the right-wing media people are. And what do I mean by that? Well, Matt said, remember, don't be mean to, don't hate hate the sin, not the sinner. I have not, I've been a Democrat a pretty long time. I come from a rather conservative circle, both friends and family. And I'm just going to be honest with you. That's particular benefit has never been afforded to me. No one has ever hated the sin of my liking liberal policies. They've hated the libs. They've hated the Dems. They've hated me. That's who they're mad at. So to be like, you can't hate these people. They hate you. They hate you. You have to decide what that means. I'm not at all advocating for people to stop talking to one another if that's not what they want to do. I'm certainly not going to stop talking to people that I disagree with. So I'm not saying you should. But I think we need to be clear-eyed. If they don't hate Kamala Harris's policies. They like her policies, actually. When you detach her name from it, they love it. She was going to give everybody $25,000 to buy their first house, $6,000 to pay for their first kid so they can get, daycare or supplies. Obviously, student loans were going to be, or supposedly going to be addressed. Now, again, if you don't believe any of this, then this is not a compelling argument to you. But the policies, everybody loves it when you say it, and then you say Kamala Harris is going to do it, and that's when it gets bad. Because that's when they stop believing it's true. And the reason they stop believing it's true is because of who they listen to on social media and who they listen to on their podcast. It is a steady diet of Theo Vaughn, of Andrew Tate, of Joe Rogan. It's that group of people. That's who young men listen to. And that group of people, whether we want to admit it or not, they did two things. One, They made Democrats a joke, sometimes rightfully so, sometimes not so much. And they made Donald Trump's nationalism also a joke. So now you think the Democratic Party is a weak joke. You think that Donald Trump is a funny joke, even though he's saying nationalist, spitting out nationalist lines at Madison Square Garden. And that's the perfect recipe for he's not that bad. She's incompetent. I'm voting for him. And that's exactly what happened. Put money on it. And again, you could do whatever you want. You could pick, the most authentic person on the planet to be the next Democratic candidate. If they can't talk to that group of people because that group of people is just simply not listening to them, or worse, if they go on to that group of people's shows, but they're, so you have 1 week where Mayor Pete is talking, but then the next week you've got some guy talking about all of the vaccines that Mayor Pete was talking about being, poisonous or putting freaking Wi-Fi in your bloodstream or whatever the hell Robert Kennedy thinks is happening to people. So there's no way around it. There's no way around it. Like, we need to create it ourselves, and we need to be as sycophantic as they are. The Democrats need to play on their rules. Gloves need to come off because the old rules, being the nice guys, is not working. The impotent rage is not working. And again, if you're a woman in this country right now, you're scared. If you're an immigrant in this country, you're scared. And I get it. If it doesn't hurt me or mine, then I don't care. That's fine. But for other people, it does hurt theirs and them. You know what I mean? There are people whose me and mine is in trouble now. And it's because the Democratic Party just left their flank completely open. Didn't even try. They run up numbers with this group. They run up numbers with women. They, gonna increase the turnout of people of color. It didn't work. People of color moved over to Trump because that's not what they wanted. It's because they're not hearing you. Nothing you say is being heard because the people who they're hearing aren't talking about you. They don't like you. Openly, in some cases, they don't like you. They don't trust you. We're not going to break that. We're not going to make Joe Rogan trust a Democrat. So we just need to create a Joe Rogan. We're not going to make Andrew Tate stop being a misogynist. So we just need to create one who's not a misogynist. We can't, and then it's a marketing. Then it's a marketing campaign. We got a show, they got a show. Our show needs to be more popular. Simple as that. We can't change these people. They have their beliefs, and that is their right as Americans to have them. It's a free country. So trying to hope that these people that are super influential in our politics are going to be better someday, they're not. There's a reason they endorsed the white nationalist. So there you go. Anyone have anything they want to add?
There's definitely a lot of stuff that I disagreed and agreed with you. We'll start with number one. Why do you think the Democratic/Liberal Party got this weak? Why do you think they got this weak reputation? What changed and what actions did the Liberals/Democrats do to make people feel that they're a weaker group?
So I would say that one is not something they did. It is the rise of a right-wing ecosystem. So started on talk radio and Fox News, and now again moved on to podcasts and YouTube and Twitch and all that. So that growing block of content creators from very early on up until today is a huge part of it, I would say, because they're priming people to believe certain types of folks and certain beliefs are inherently weaker. We then did have a misstep. I would say personally, I think this was a misstep where when we ran Hillary Clinton, a historic candidate, and that she was the first woman to receive a nomination, we ran her as if she was Barack Obama, who also was a historic candidate. Or we ran her how we thought we ran Barack Obama, I should say. And we made women the center of that campaign because we were running a woman. It makes sense. So women became the center of that campaign. They're also a fairly large voting bloc for Democrats in general, like just as a general rule that women tend to vote more Democratic. So it made sense. They're going to vote for us. There's a lot of them. Let's make them the focal point. Thing is, if you're listening to Andrew Tate all day or Rush Limbaugh back then, you think women are weak. And that was the entirety of what the Democratic Party focused on. And I don't believe it was wrong of them to focus on women and women's issues. But I'm saying that you mix the two together, They're focusing on one thing, and you've got somebody telling them that that one thing is weakness, then that's a recipe for believing in weakness. You look at crime, same thing. Crime is down everywhere. That's a fact. That's a statistical fact. You can look anywhere you want. You could scour the internet. As long as it's not, cat turd tweets, if you have a single actual bureau of anything, all crime is down. Except for I think theft has remained kind of similar. You're not inherently in more danger in the major cities today than you would have been during Trump's presidency or really any other time. But that's not what people are told. People are told San Francisco is a shithole full of crime. They're told this, they're told that. And the Democrats weren't telling anybody the other side of it. They were just like, that's not true. And they moved on. But no one heard them say that. And when they did hear them say that, because the person they actually trusted said that's a lie, they say, well, that's a lie. Joe Rogan said that that's a lie. Andrew Tate said that's a lie. Jordan Peterson said that's a lie. Fox News said that's a lie. So we're not talking in facts anymore. We're talking in feelings and who you trust. And you don't trust them because you were told not to trust them. So to answer your question, Matt, they focused on things that I think you or other people, maybe not you, would call wokeism during that Clinton kind of campaign. And then they doubled down on it in 2020 during the primary. I don't believe that was a smart idea, only because, again, that was never going to sell with this group of people in particular. But other than that, no, I don't believe that it's their fault. I believe it's just the media environment was created successfully. It was a plan, and it was created successfully to drown out mainstream media, the liberal media, right, in favor of more niche, more conservative, more masculine media. And that was that.
So to branch off of that, so one thing you really hit on was about the rise of the right-wing media,
Yeah.
who have said some big things. Don't get me wrong, the Rush Limbaugh says some terrible stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But what actions if you want to hit on the wokeism, did you feel that the ideology of the left, what do you think they did to get people to start thinking this way? Unless you feel that this conservative media just decided one day, you know what, I'm just going to make this stuff up and say this is that is this. And if we want to go to specific examples, whether it's the PC culture, if we're going to go with like some things with PC culture, right?
Right, yeah.
PC/woke culture that might have some people feel that those ideologies are thrown down your face, whether it's through the media or the liberal person. Don't you think if you are told something hundreds of times that you didn't ask for, that was unsolicited, don't you think it's going to turn off many people and why people voted the way they did? If we're going to go off the vibes in the person, don't you feel that people felt, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of being told what to do. I'm tired of being told what to think. And because of this, I will use my power in the polls to try to change it.
So when do you think, Dolo and Matt, you can both answer this. When do you think this cancel thing, right? We're talking about canceling, I think, right? That's the main thing where you mentioned the PC canceling.
I'm talking about the ideology, not canceling necessarily. I'm talking about
so when do you think
politically correct ideologies thrown, which I agree with some of them.
So
not
when
all,
do you
but
think,
some.
Right. So when do you think the PC culture? Yep.
Why do you think that led to people, or I should say, circle it back? Why do you think that so many people were so turned off by it that they used that in their vote to make that change? Why do you think? And they could have created a better message. Anybody could say things various ways, but it seems the way that they did it caused this almost revenge vote for the change that is about to come. And as I said, and coming at my three main points of the Democratic Party being a reason for the blame with this loss, that they were underprepared, and especially not knowing what a lot of the working class did, which was part of Bernie Sanders' tweet that it seems that you vehemently disagree with today.
I do.
So again, just to put a bow on it, why do you think they started to change for it? Why with it? Why did they decide? Why did they decide that they're tired of this and we're going to go the other way instead of trying to agree or hear the other side of it?
Yeah, because they didn't see the problem with it. I mean, I'm saying that not to be like pedantic at all. I'm saying that as a fact of the matter is, and I believe this personally, and a lot of people who vote Democrat believe this too. Um, Happy holidays. We'll use the happy holidays instead of Merry Christmas as an example. Okay.
Hmm.
I have absolutely no fucking problem saying happy holidays instead of Merry Christmas. I don't care. When I'm with my family at Christmas, I say Merry Christmas because everyone there celebrates Christmas. The police don't come. They don't arrest you because you didn't say happy holidays. But when you're seeing someone on the street in December, you say happy holidays because you don't know what they celebrate. For some reason, for a large contingent of people, that is a bridge too fucking far. And I don't know why that is. I can't even begin to tell you why that is because it literally does not matter. And the opposite side of the point is, well, if it doesn't matter, then why do we have to do it? You don't. You know, no one's gonna again. No one's going to arrest you. No one's going to arrest you. And the idea that, oh, yeah, well, they'll cancel me. Donald Trump is an adjudicated rapist, and 34 counts of felony he was found guilty for, and he's about to be the next president of the United States. Cancel culture is not real. If anyone in the world has done something enough to get canceled, it would have been Donald Trump at this point. I think we can all agree with that. He did things that if other people had done, they would have been in more trouble than he is. So that's just the reality. The idea that a regular person saying Merry Christmas at the supermarket is going to somehow end up in the liberal gulag is ridiculous. You know why they believe it? Because Rush Limbaugh onward said it's not ridiculous. That's exactly what they want. And they'll cherry pick one politician who got called out by CNN or one person who went viral on TikTok. They'll say, look at this. This is what they want from you. It's one person. It's one video. But this is what they want from you. This is what's going to happen. This is why you have to comply in their world or else they're going to take it away. That's made up. So if you want my honest opinion, it's made up. And I know that that's not a winning message on this group because you guys don't believe it's made up. And that's why, 71 million people don't believe it's made up. It's why he won the election. But I'm telling you the truth. That's the only thing Democrats could have done differently. If we had a Rush Limbaugh competing for those ears, the open ears, saying that, calling it ridiculous. That's patently ridiculous that anyone's going to come to your house because you said Merry Christmas instead of Happy Holidays. It is patently ridiculous that if you accidentally see someone who uses they them pronouns and you say she, you're not going to end up in front of the firing squad. Okay, that's not what it is. At worst, you've made one person a little annoyed. That's reality. That is reality. Now, people don't want that to be reality, and I get it, but that is reality. That is what cancel culture is. That is what PC culture is. It's people saying, I would prefer if you said this, and you then saying, okay, or nah. And then my question to the people who say nah would be, why? Why is someone said, I would rather you call me they, them? Why is that a problem? Why do you care at all what they want their pronouns to be? To me, that makes no sense. To have any opinion on what another person wants their pronouns to be is quite literally outside of my scope of understanding. Same with the Happy Holidays, First Maker, all of it. Out of my understanding why anybody would care. But that's what PC culture is. It's someone saying, I'd prefer this, and someone else saying, well, my preference is F your preference. That's what it is.
Yeah, it could definitely be a clash of egos ultimately. Don't discredit that. What do you have to say, Dolo, if anything?
Um, yeah, I mean, there's a few things to take from that. I think if I were to throw my hat into the ring here, and I don't really like making things about race, but maybe race was a big determining factor of this. Now, one thing you said there was saying that Trump voters, 71 million people voted for him because they thought this and
Mhm.
because they
By and
thought this was
large.
true.
Yeah,
They
by
they
and
thought
large.
like
Obviously, there's people on both sides who have weird beliefs that lead them where they are. But I'm saying
yeah, yeah.
in aggregate.
Yeah, so what I heard you say was I heard you say oh, I heard everything you said, but what you said at that part was saying I these people voted this way because they thought because they would hear this from these sources, they would hear this from a podcast, they would hear this from this person and then
Mhm.
say this is true. even though it's wrong, even though you guys think it's true. I'm here to tell you the truth. And
Mhm.
maybe that message coming from maybe specifically white liberals,
Yeah,
maybe that rubbed minorities the wrong way.
could
Being
be.
historically told that they're wrong,
Well, it
left and
definitely
right.
could be.
And yeah, and also believing that all the voters have a certain ideology. That's not fair.
Yeah, putting a
Out of
blanket
us,
on all of them. I think
that's
I
that's a
mean,
exactly
message
what
that
I'm
doesn't
talking
work.
about.
they've all voted for Donald Trump, so they
So
all at the bare minimum are fine.
all 71 million people listened to Andrew Tate and did what he said because they told
No,
him to.
that's what I said. I said in aggregate. I made that very clear that this was an aggregate decision. I'm not. That's what I mean. I don't. I'm not going to go data point by data point. This person actually did this. This person actually did that. But what I am saying is, look at the economy. The economy was the number one cited issue with Trump voters, right?
Well, I've definitely, and
Yeah,
I pointed out the
right.
reasons with
Well,
inflation and
right.
the
Okay, right.
gas
So,
and
okay.
the
Well, let me finish.
rent and the
Well, let me
bills.
finish. Let me finish. Like I said, the economy was the number one issue for Trump voters. And if you look at the economy right now, today, inflation is at the lowest it's been in 2 years. So it's on the way down. It's the lowest it's been in 2 years. We have got the lowest unemployment we've had in a very long time. So more people are working.
Like lowest in 2 years. That doesn't say
Yeah,
much for the Biden
Well, it
administration.
does
and
It's
because
been
it
going for
was
but
4
super
then
years.
why
high
are there so
For the
many
after
first two
people
COVID
years
still
and
has
they
been
brought
struggling
it
bad.
then? If
down.
For
that
the
is such
last,
a
but you want credit for the last 2 years getting better because
Yeah,
it's
why,
been
because it
the
and
was
first two.
also
bad and
to
they made
add
it
to
go
that,
down.
I mean, yeah,
why
credit is due where it's due, but it's like that's kind of that doesn't really help the case. It's
exactly
kind of
that
why Kamala
that's
lost.
hard to say that because there's still many people still struggling.
I know,
There's the
I know
numbers say
that.
one thing, but I think that's an unfair statement because we still are having these major problems.
Well,
You
it's not
could
an
say
unfair.
these
I'm
by the
not.
numbers.
Yeah, I'm just saying
Well,
numbers. I'm not saying anything about people's lived experience of difficulty. I'm quoting numbers.
well, numbers, even though they could be true, not what's the word I'm looking for? Like, sure, you could say a number here, but there's still so many people feeling the opposite way. So many people still
Right? No,
struggling.
people disagreed with the numbers. People
Yeah,
disagreed.
so something's wrong there, and
Yeah.
especially with the
I can give
polling,
another
which we can
example.
never trust a poll again. I'll say
Well, I
that.
agree. I agree with that. The polls are worthless at
Dolo,
this
you're
point.
saying?
I actually like that. Yeah, maybe the polls are kind of bullshit, but
Yeah.
there was a statistic. I wish I had it in front of me. I had it when we were talking about the assassination attempt,
Hmm.
which I believe there's been like one or two since that happened. But
Just yeah, they had the two during the campaign anyway.
yeah, I did have a stat. I wish I had it in front of me, but it's like during Joe Biden's administration, mass shootings actually went up
Yeah.
during the 4 years. But to give Joe Biden credit, in this last year, the mass shooting numbers were going like dramatically down. So I
Hmm.
mean, yeah, I do believe in credit to be given where it's due, but it's like it's kind of this is like a weak it's like a weak point. It's like, yeah, we made it shitty here, but at least we're doing a little bit better now near the end.
That's like
It's
saying with the Yankees have 28 World Series, but they haven't won one in 15 years. They're still the top half of that numbers,
Okay.
but it's not hidden
So
at
let me
this
ask. So,
moment.
yeah. No. So let
yeah.
me ask. Again, don't get mad. Asking.
Don't assume we're gonna get the one thing. Let us just say the statement
No.
first.
Okay. I'm gonna ask on the economy. An economy is clearly an important thing to a lot of voters. What what is the thing in the economy that you would like changed, and why is Donald Trump going to change it?
Oh, you're asking us.
Yeah.
I mean, well, based off, history, when he ran the first time, the economy was doing pretty good.
It's good when
I
it got
think
there.
people trust Donald Trump when in relation with like foreign affairs and maybe making things better between nations. Like that was one thing that I remembered
Mhm.
about Obama. Like mind you, I'm not the biggest
No.
political pundit, and I wouldn't say I'm more of a combat sports pundit. I give myself that. But one thing I remembered about Obama, he was really unpopular when it came to his foreign affairs. He was
Mhm.
popular on everything else. He ran
Yeah.
back to back.
Yeah.
But when it came to his foreign affairs, people like just he just wasn't very popular. And I think m- I think people might trust him when it comes to those conversations more. Uh, and maybe there is a thing where they feel like maybe America, maybe just human beings in general. Let me take America out of it. Just the human being mindset that maybe people just generally like a man to lead instead of a woman.
Oh, there's
I give you
yeah,
that. Like that might be part of this.
there's definitely something to that. I don't know if it's the whole thing, but it's definitely something. It's in there, it's in the
Yeah,
mix for
and it
sure.
could go the other way too, I think, and that's something I really wanted to come today and ask some questions. But now that we're talking about it, I guess we'll talk more about it. But I think it goes the other way, having the prospect of like, the first diss, the first
Hmm.
woman diss, right? And in
Hmm.
this case it was the first minority woman.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, but as far as to continue answering your question, yeah, just based off past performance and based off the trust and uh, based off of trust that maybe Trump supporters have when it comes to foreign affairs, maybe we can get something going. I don't know, fix relationships, maybe trade will get better. And then, I mean, just the idea now, the tariff thing. Now, we did talk about this in the group
Yeah.
chat, and I do appreciate you sending that Wikipedia page for me to learn a little more. Um, the tariff thing, like, I guess there would have to be more discussion about that in a more public space. I'd like to see, that's really what I like to see, like policies being talked about. And I'm glad you asked the question. Um, Now the whole tariff thing that could be good, it could be bad, but um, like I
Well,
said, there should be
historically,
more
it's never
discussion
been good.
about it. Now I do remember you saying that, but I actually from research I was able to see that there were some tariffs that Trump put into place during his presidency the first time
Oh
around
yeah, every president puts down
that Biden
tariffs.
kept in.
Yeah, no, every
And
president has tariffs. Tariffs as a concept is not a problem. A 20% blanket tariff was been done one time before, and it led to the Great Depression. That again, that is facts. That is history. That is statistics. I'm
now,
not making it up. It was in the thing I sent you.
I
So
believe it.
yeah,
Like what I would ask is that would you believe that, and this is just me
yeah,
trying to understand it more. Do you think the era that we're in, due to the advent of like technology, the
hmm,
internet, e-commerce,
yeah.
social media, do you think that would have an effect on maybe a tariff idea in this modern day? And
Yeah. So,
I'll have something to add to it after.
yeah. So, in like a modern context, I think that it wouldn't lead to the Great Depression. I don't believe that would happen. I don't believe my job would change in any way because of a tariff on imports. I don't, anyone with a like a white collar job at a computer or content creator or whatever probably can get away. I mean, things will cost more because prices go up when there are tariffs, but other than the prices going up, which everybody will feel, that's not, exclusive to one group of people. No, there would be no change in like employment status, etc. You know who would be hurt? It would be all of those union workers making cars, making whatever in Michigan, in Ohio, in Pennsylvania, in Wisconsin, because all of the materials cost more. Every single thing they produce now costs more by depending on how many materials they have, could be, exponentially more. So now that company is either going to pay everybody less or going to cut workforce because they have to maintain their profits. They're then going to pass on the additional costs that they can't get rid of through, cutting to the consumer. So now less people are working with their, in those industries. Everyone's paying more for these products. And this is supposed to be the way that's going to bring prices down and improve the economy again. This is his signature plan to do that. And again, I'm not saying that. He said that. He said it a dozen times. Like, I mean, it was a keystone, like a cornerstone of his campaign. He was like, we're going to introduce these tariffs to fix the economy. That was his selling point. There's really no way in my mind to make that a true statement. But for a lot of people, it was. Because, okay, I like Trump. I trust Trump. Everybody I know says this will work. Doesn't matter that, only 7% of the world's economists agree. everyone that I know and listen to does agree. So that's the way we're going. And so again, that goes back to information. What people know is what they vote on. Who they trust and what they believe is what they vote on. The Democratic Party, the fault that they have, and I agree with Matt on this, is that they don't have anybody doing that. They don't have anyone building trust with normal people to say, well, that's bullshit. And they have to say it like that too. And that's the thing that I always find interesting. And maybe, again, I don't know if you actually agree with this or not, so that we might all be curious about this. But if you do agree with what I'm about to say, then I would like to hear your thoughts. For some reason, and honestly, it could be what you said earlier, Dolo. When a liberal says, well, that's bullshit, it is taken poorly every time. It's like, don't disrespect me. That every time, that's how it is. Don't disrespect me. Now, again, me being a white liberal, I think we can point to a white male liberal at that. We can point to exactly why at least certain people would look at me and be like, "Shut the hell up." And then maybe it's the
I would never do that, by the way.
No, I know, but I'm saying, and then maybe it's the education thing too. If there's an education gap between the person speaking and the person listening, be like, whatever, you pansy, you went to too much school, right? And maybe, I don't know. So like, and maybe that's just it. Maybe it's just that the Democratic Party at this current moment has got no successful avatar to talk to people with, and that I totally down to believe that. Because I don't know who it would be. If you ask me, well, who would do this? Who could do this? I got no idea. And the only people who even kind of do it, people like Hassan, right? They make one cardinal sin. The people who are lefties who do this, they bash Democrats more than they bash anybody else because they're so far left. They want this, they want that, and so the Democrats are not left enough. So they spend most of their time, even though they agree with a bunch of the Democratic Party and platform, bashing Democrats for not being exactly what they want it to be. And so you've got the right bashing Democrats, you've got the left bashing Democrats.
I think
Of course, nobody likes
said
Democrats.
something about that before, where he I forgot what it was about. I think it was a tweet that said like with Republican voters. I'm gonna get back to the tariff thing. I got one
Yeah,
more thing to say about it, but Senkuger had a tweet. He said conservatives if you agree with even 1% of their message, they'll take you in and use you for a vote or whatever.
sure.
But with liberals, if you disagree with even
Yeah,
1% of
they jump down your
their
throat.
message, they'll jump down your throat. Yeah.
Not all
That's
of them, but yeah,
something.
there's definitely a contingent of people, kind of what to Matt's point with the PC people or whatever. If you take one step out of line, you're going to hear it from somebody that you took a step out of line.
And you can also say that for those who are negatively, you talk about how if if you say something a liberal disagrees with, um, or a liberal says something and you disagree with the liberal, that you will throw it down their throat and you hate that. But you can also just say that to the other side for a conservative or somebody who's right. If they say something the liberal doesn't agree with, then bam, 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 bam. It's
Yeah,
both sides doing it.
sure.
That's the problem. That's how we can't come to a
Well,
solution
right, no,
if
but
we're off hating with that in the clashing of the egos.
right, and that's what I'm saying. Like that, so that's the issue is this group of people has got their ecosystem of information, and we don't have an effective way to compete for that group of people. We don't have an effective way to build that ecosystem because when you try and talk in general, it ends up in a fight. And yes, you could say it happens the other way too, but the right already has this group. The right doesn't need to build this ecosystem. They have it. They did it. They did it back, when Rush Limbaugh and Roger Ailes created Fox, Rush Limbaugh, Roger Ailes created Fox News. They did it. The work is done for them. Now they're just coasting on the infrastructure that they built. So, yes, it would if they were trying to build it, it also wouldn't work. I agree with you, Matt, but they don't have to build it. They did it before this was a problem. So now they're golden. They're sitting pretty, and Democrats have to play catch up, and it's very hard because if a Democrat says anything to someone who doesn't like a Democrat, the virtue of your being a Democrat makes you an asshole, and so there's nothing else you can do. And so that's why I'm saying I don't really know that there is a way out of this. To be honest with you, if you want my true, honest opinion after the election, I don't know that there's any way to fix this other than if the current administration that's coming in, right? So when Trump swears in, Trump's in, Vance is in, has the cabinet. I guess if they like royally screw something up, I mean like royally, I mean like just plain as day, natural disaster, they don't help, or I don't know. maybe that would do it. Like, and that could be a reset, and maybe you could take that opportunity to try and build the infrastructure then while people are just super mad at the Republican Party. But if they do even just if they just lay low, I think that they'll coast to a re-election in 2028 because we have no way to talk to this group of voters. We just don't. We have absolutely no way to do it because every time we try, it's shut down as as with both as with both groups, but we haven't built any trust to try and get those people anyway. So that's the issue, and I don't know how Democrats fix it. I wish I could, because if I could do it, I would tell somebody, and maybe I'd get paid lots of money to do it. But I don't. I don't know how you fix it. I don't know how you make. I mean, I've had conversations with friends, and they end up mad at me, and they like me generally.
Mm.
The brand is toxic. The Democratic brand is toxic. If you're a Democrat and you're talking to a young man, I would like at least halftime coin flip. We'll call it. What was it? 54% you said voted for Trump, right?
I
Something
believe so.
like, yeah, something like that. So yeah,
For men, yep, yep.
yeah, just about a coin flip. Give or take a few points. They're gonna hate you just by being there. Coin flip. And so, I mean, again, if we could try and do the both sides, and I agree that the both sides have that tendency, but the difference being that only one side has the apparatus to silo off a large group of voters. And so then the liberals, to Matt's point, they end up being the only people who are watching MSNBC, CNN, CBS, ABC, traditional legacy news media, which is run by, people who went to Harvard, who went to Yale, who, actual elites. Everybody at those networks is an actual elite, at least everyone that matters. And that becomes their worldview. So they're being treated as elites. They're only listening to elites. This campaign, listen, I'm glad that celebrities endorsed. Fine, good. They should not have had every effing celebrity on the planet come on stage.
Man, I have a point to that I want to add to when you're finished.
Yeah, they should have it should have been, and I mean Trump did it too, but he did it to a lesser extent. And the celebrities he picked, they were in the manosphere. They're part of that group. They're in that information cycle that I'm talking about. So it wasn't really celebrities at that point. It was thought leaders. They
He
brought on thought
surprisingly
leaders.
had a lot of young rappers too, like
I'm not
rappers.
surprised by that at all.
Yeah,
I don't
it was
find
a
that
little
at all
surprising to
surprising.
me. I always just thought liberals had like the edge on culture. It just always
I
seemed like that.
not
So
for I
in
don't
the
believe
old-
for men they do. Like, I mean,
Well,
we
can I
just
say
talked
one
about it,
thing
right? Yeah.
with this?
Sorry. Yes.
Also, just to answer your question, so I'm on the record, if you want to ask about what could Trump do to make prices go low for what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. Just for me on the record,
Mhm.
I drive a car a lot. I drive a car a lot.
Mhm.
Gas is high. Gas is really
Yeah.
high. We get our foreign oil. We get our oil from a lot of foreign places.
Mostly, yeah.
And I am actually very for the Keystone Pipeline, which has been
Mhm.
shot down.
Yeah.
And I know due to the indigenous people, the issues
Mhm.
of their land being affected, on
Mhm.
top of possible oil spills creating
Right. The
environmental
environment
problems,
stuff, yeah.
that's a legitimate thing to be concerned about. However, I do think it'd be more beneficial to use the oil that is on our North American continent and figure out a way, whether the initial plan and or whatever, and try to use the oil we have in this country before we ask somebody else's.
Sure.
By doing that, you can have cheaper gas prices, you create more jobs, you boost the economy. That's
Well, yeah,
something
so
that I'd be interested for Trump that he didn't hold too much on this campaign. I know something in the back of his mind
the
that
last
could
time he
help.
said that, yeah, that was part of his previous campaigns for
Yeah.
certain. And in theory with tariffs, by the way, just so the theory of them is explained for anyone who's interested. When you put a tariff down, it reduces foreign competition. That's the theory. So if you put a tariff down, foreign manufacturing has an edge because it's cheaper now to buy American because they have the extra cost being passed on to consumers for buying a foreign product. The issue with that comes in the fact that we don't make anything anymore by and large. I know we make some things, but we do not export. We do not have the same industry we had the last time we did a tariff like this. So a lot of more things are being shipped in. So if we could build the infrastructure to do like what Matt's saying, if we could have our own oil, if we could have our own natural resources that we could then use in our own factories to build our own products, then a tariff would work like swimmingly because it would make it much easier to buy American, which would improve American companies, improve Americans' pay. Everybody wins. The issue is the reason we don't do it anymore is because we don't have all, I mean, we do have oil. We have oil, as Matt's saying, but we don't really have all those resources right now. And even if we could find all those resources, it would take time. So for the next 4 years, while we're trying to rebuild the entire American industry to be completely America first, no exports at all, because any exports are going to make the price go up. Everyone's going to have to pay more because we're not going to stop buying things in the 4 years it takes them to make a new economy. I mean, Musk actually said this himself that when they win, and now they have, it's going to be rough for a little bit. There's going to be higher prices. People are going to make less. But once it all burns down, this is a tweet, by the way. So I can share it if you want. But this is a tweet by Musk. Once they burn it all down, they can rebuild an America first economy. And that's very much true. They can absolutely do that. But to do that will require hardship in the short term because they have to put the tariffs on first. Otherwise, there'll never be an incentive to do anything. So they have to make the pinch in order for the market to respond by finding ways to make everything here. So that means they have to apply the pinch first and then get all of the manufacturing fired up here, get all of the mining fired up here, get all of the oil fired up here. Again, this speaks nothing to the environmental impact that this could have. I'm ignoring that entirely. Just that from a specifically economic argument, there has to be a pinch in order to move the market to completely isolate because we are so interconnected with our trading partners with the rest of the world. So I don't believe there's any short-term benefit to a tariff, and I will go on record as saying that. A tariff of any kind in the short term won't help a single person who voted for Donald Trump. 71 million people, and I know they believed it, 71 million people voted on incorrect information when it comes to the economy because the tariff will not work, certainly not in the first 2 years.
I want to add to what you said. Well, I remember when he said that Trump ran this on like as like a cornerstone of his
the tariff,
yeah, like a part of his campaign. To be real, honestly, hey, you might have a point about young men listening to Joe Rogan and stuff like that because that was the first time I heard about that tariff. To be real, that was the first time I heard about it, and it just had my gears thinking. But then I heard somebody else talking about it. How it would really create jobs and it would create more American jobs that would pay more than jobs that are like sent overseas or whatever.
Yeah, in the long term, it would absolutely do. Like I said, the way they would work is by eliminating the need or basically the feasibility of foreign products. It makes American products preferable. The issue that we have is that we are not an industrialized economy anymore. We're an information economy. We work on computers by and large. A lot of us, not all of us, a lot of us do. Or we work in the arts, or we work gig jobs, right? We do these things that do not require going to a factory. Some people do. A lot of people do even. But just the overall economy is not built that way. And so we're going to be fixing over the course of however many years one sector of the economy, but everyone is going to be taking the cost hit in the meantime. So everyone is paying more in the meantime while we burn down the current structure of our economy and then rebuild it with an America First agenda, with an America First mandate. And then with the tariffs in place, America First will absolutely work. So if you're a consumer and now everything is made in America, so the prices are lower, actually lower, boom, that's perfect. You're like, all right, yeah, I'll buy that one. You'll buy a Ford instead of a Toyota if the Ford is cheaper than the Toyota. Every time, without a question, because it's cheaper. It's the reason why people buy Toyotas instead of a Ford, because right now, to make a Ford is super expensive, and China makes Toyotas cheaper, brings them here.
Yeah,
well, I'm just using like an American car company.
I get what you're saying.
But that's why people buy, like for cars as a specific example, it's cheaper to buy a car made overseas and brought over here. That's cheaper right now than buying a car that was made here because the cost to make the car here is more expensive. In order for the tariffs to work, they also have to get to the point where making the car here is not more expensive. And that's where the pinch is going to be, because when they start it, when the tariff starts, it's going to be still expensive to build a car here, maybe even more expensive if they're still importing stuff short term. But the cheap car that everybody was getting because it's too expensive, now that's more expensive. So now so the expensive thing stayed where it is. The cheap thing got more expensive. So you don't have any value. You're just paying more regardless. Now, once they get the price of the other one down, because they've been able to rebuild this economy that Musk has envisioned, then yeah, it'll be cheaper, and then they'll be able to hire more people. They'll invest in communities, all that stuff. That's all true, but none of that is happening while Donald Trump is president. That'll be the next person, whoever's in charge, who receives any benefit of that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think sometimes it's something like that's worth it. We're burning time already. You might as well start this plan, and it'll take years for, and see if you might agree or disagree with that. At least something I realized in the last 4 years ago, like that.
Well, yeah,
So
4 years goes
that
a
could
long
be
time.
one thing. We're trying to find the instant gratification, which a lot of people complain about now.
Mm-hmm.
This is a perfect example to, can fight against that, but in the long term, be a lot
Sure,
better.
I mean, but the reality of that is it's not like you have to wait for the thing you want. You'll have to pay more for 4 years. 4 years goes fast, but if everything costs more for 4 years, if people are losing their jobs for 4 years because they have to rebuild the economy, there are people who will not survive that. And that's
yeah, I
just a fact.
think
That's
I
also just true, right? Like when you have a recession or a depression, like we've had two in this country, that really severely impacted people. And so building another one, even in the service of creating something more America based in its wake, means that in the meantime, people will be hurt.
All right, thank you.
see.
Doug, you want to just no, keep going. Then I want to
Yeah, no, my
switch it up a
bad.
little bit after this.
I
My
agree.
bad. It's just one point I wanted to
Oh
add
yeah,
to
yeah.
this.
Just take it. Do
Just
your
one
thing.
one more point.
Yeah.
Because like the thing is, Ryan could be absolutely right. Elon could be absolutely right. Tim Pool could be absolutely right. Whoever else any economist that would be against it could be right as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're in an economy where a lot of people are working, unfortunately are working two different jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe two different jobs that paid more would help them. But that's not even the point I really want to make, because like I said, we would never really know until we would see here.
So you do it.
Um like yeah, and I still feel like America is like the premier market. It's why TikTok is fighting so badly to stay here.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, that's not even my point I'm trying to say. The final point I want to add to it is that this was like you see how this discussion and this dialogue was created just by this fat orange dude just throwing the idea into the air. He
Mm-hmm.
just threw it into the air and it created some dialogue. I think that is something that I think that's what really intrigued me the most about it, was that it was something new. Shout out to Bach. His thing, his brand is called
Fresh
Fresh
faces.
Faces, New
Mm-hmm.
Ideas. Um, this at least hits the new idea kind of mark, not saying obviously nothing he obviously wouldn't like anything
No,
Trump
yeah.
said. But but I
Yeah.
like the concept of a new idea. And to be honest, I haven't really heard a new idea from Bach. And I love Bach. I rock with Bach. But I haven't heard no new ideas when I watch his stuff. Like at least I heard a new idea. And maybe this is like something that would like if you're playing chess, right? If
Mm-hmm.
this is a chessboard and you're using strategy, like you might use a pawn to threaten, the position of the rook or the king or something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a big chess player, but this could have been just something thrown in the air, and other people, other leaders from around the world maybe just heard this happen, heard this being talked about. Maybe it puts them on edge. Maybe it puts them on their back foot, and maybe they enter a discussion or a conversation or a negotiation differently just based off of that. You know, kind of like Jake Paul giving the fake Rolex to Tyron Woodley before he beat him. It just kind of threw him off, through his mental off. It's just something I thought was interesting. This could just be, maybe this isn't even something that would happen. This is something that was thrown in the air to maybe just
Yeah,
Like,
people talking like this.
yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When people tell you who they are, believe them.
All
Yeah.
right, why don't we go we hit this final act, if you will. No time limit on it, but I really want to focus on the vibes again with this. I think we had a good start. If we split into 3 acts. First act, we say our piece, we say how we feel, we say our reaction. Act 2 is about the actual some policies, which is the most important part of the campaign and election, and then Act 3, the actual vibes and what we got here for. Right.
Yeah.
I think that's fair. One thing to a little bit what you rubbed on with, and one thing I actually really want to talk about first in terms of the influence, especially the celebrity influence. I found a really great quote. I will say from the Joe Rogan page, but I think it's a fair one to say. I think this particular concept that I'm about to say, number one, is very new and will rock with the rest of our lives. And number two is the fact that this is a huge win for our industry. And it essentially solidifies long form interview podcasts for life. This was a great campaign. This was a great election for the podcast. Both sides. It's a humongous win for this industry that we all should celebrate.
I agree with that.
So with this one, he said, and I think we're all going to agree. I believe we're going to all agree with this. Focusing on the vibes first of the influence and then the actual supporters. So that's how we'll split this up, right? It says here, the election highlighted a major shift. Voters will no longer just be swayed by celebrity endorsements or perfectly staged photo ops. The era of quick sound bites and superficial campaigns is over. What people want now is authenticity. They're looking for leaders who are willing to engage in long-form, unscripted conversations. So, do you guys agree with that or disagree?
I agree with 99% of that. There's only one line that I disagree with.
Okay, which is
there's this idea that authenticity is something that can only be achieved in these long form. I think you can be authentic and not do the long form. However, I think that the long form in particular shows, I mean, it's like it's in the name, long form. You cannot get more authentic than sitting down with Joe Rogan for 2 hours or whoever. And again, it goes back to what I'm saying is you need an equivalent of Joe Rogan on the other side that people trust and listen to. But my point is that, like, yeah, if you're talking to someone for 2 hours, 2.5 hours, no one has got 2.5 hours pre-canned responses to a question. And honestly, if it's a conversational thing like Rogan does, which is something I like about Rogan, is that the questions are really less questions and more him being like, just talking, be like, I heard about this thing. What do you think? Like, well, it's literally what we do here, but it's Joe Rogan and like Elon Musk or RFK or Bernie Sanders, right? Like, it's this, but that, like, that's who's on it. And so there's no way to fake the authenticity there. I think there are times where a politician could be totally authentic, but depending on, again, where you get your information from, it's quite easy to take, someone helping an old lady across the street and say, oh, that was BS. And if you trust the person who said that more than you trust the person who helped the old lady across the street, of course you're going to say, well, that's probably just BS, right? And so, I mean, I did it too. I'm like, so I'm not even criticizing people. We talked about JD Vance on Joe Rogan when he said his, the movie that shaped his, worldview was what, Boys in the Hood, right? I'm like, I said, I was like, that has to be fake. There's no way that's real.
Have you seen Boys in the Hood, Ryan?
No, absolutely not.
Why not?
I have no idea what that. Oh, I've never even heard of the movie.
How do you know? How could you not hear of it, bro? That's a culturally and significantly important movie.
All right, so if we all ever hang out, then we're watching Boys.
Sure.
Yeah,
I mean, I'll watch it.
If you see it, first of all, JD Vance, I believe him. If you actually see that movie, you watch that 90-minute movie by the great God rest his soul, John Singleton, with Ice Cube. With Ice Cube, Cuba Gooding Jr., Regina King, great cast. Yeah, if you actually saw that movie, you would have your worldview change. With one of the greatest damn lines I've ever heard in a movie that relates. That movie came out in 91 that relates now. They either don't know, don't show, or don't care what it's like living in the hood. That's one of the most important lines in cinema. And if anybody actually sees that movie, saw that genuine depiction of what John Singleton put to screen, yeah, if you are a genuine human being, you should be moved by that movie, and it should change.
Right.
About people living in the hood in South Central LA.
Yeah. No, I know.
So
that's what I was saying, but
that's an unfair thing to assume from him, because if you actually saw that movie, you would be affected by it.
Right.
And you would try to make the changes that JD Vance is trying to do as the VP.
But that was what I was saying, though, is that I saw that. No, but I saw that and I immediately thought one thing. But that's based on the people I know telling me that JD Vance is a lying snake, right? So those are the people I know and trust. I heard him say something that sounded bizarre, and I said, all right, that just can't be true. So that's what I'm saying. Like, again, Vance could be totally authentic. I mean, Matt just made an impassioned defense of the idea that he doesn't believe that you could, as long as Vance has seen that movie, he doesn't believe that Vance couldn't answer the question with that movie has changed his worldview. And that's fine. Again, that's something that I would never hear in my group. You know what I mean? Like my media would never say that. And that's what I'm saying is that exists on both sides. There are things about Democrats that people who don't like Democrats will never hear, because the people that they do trust and they do listen to won't ever say it. And so when they hear it, quick, short clips, like Matt said, they come with, that's clearly fake. And so, but to Matt's point, the way to counter that is to make sure that they're not short clips. Explain your entire point. You have 3 hours with Rogan. You have 3 hours with these people. Explain the whole thing. And then you don't have to worry about whether or not someone believes a 10-minute clip of something you did or said. They could watch 3 hours of it. And I mean, at that point, they'll know whether you were telling the truth or not. You know what I mean? There's no way to hide for 3 hours whether or not you're being honest. So I agree. Like, that to me is the biggest part about this election, is it made that and that style the centerpiece, and also that delivery system that, wasn't about going on CNN for a town hall with people. It's about sitting down with one person and then blasting it out online on YouTube and all that stuff. Like, that to me is a huge change. That most of these campaigns are not being run on the ground or run on TV studios. They're being run on social media. They're being run on the internet. And Twitch, right. Exactly. So like, that to me is huge. Again, to Matt's point, a huge change that's, I think, a net positive, because it makes people have to talk more. And it gets to more people where they are. Now, again, the Democrats are behind the 8 ball on this because they don't have any of the infrastructure, like I said. But the change itself is good. It's just their job, in my opinion, to catch up, to figure out that that's the way forward. Stop, dragging their feet on CNN and get to work on building their version of a liberal media system that does the same thing but pushes it out in a way that is liberal coded as opposed to male coded. And it might help if the liberal coded wasn't, was seen as masculine. That's something they'll probably have to figure out too, but that's a separate thing.
Well, I think the thing on that one, and why I think it's a fair criticism for Kamala, sure, maybe she didn't make an impact, but it's always going to be a what about if and what about ism and what if. But she should not have declined the biggest platform for an interview. And I do think that was a huge, maybe even fatal mistake. Fatal mistake. You do it on his terms, that he was able to grow in the United States of America on himself without without a major sponsor. If you've seen the very early Joe Rogan clips, I mean, it's baffling what he's pulled off.
Been able to do, yeah.
But
no, I agree. She should have gone.
Thing. She should have done it. And why did she feel, I don't know, I'm not going to go and say why did she feel too good to do it or whatever, but it made an impact.
No,
and that's where these unscripted, but that's what these unscripted talks, the importance of it, the authenticity, the big thing that anybody who's known me says it privately, might have said it on the show. I don't think I've said it, but I'll say it now, that I feel that Kamala came off very inauthentic, and I use the word phony. And I do think if she did it in the 2 to 3 hour interview with Rogan, that might have wiped it off. I could go on the record saying if I saw that interview with Kamala, maybe maybe a vote would have been changed. So I think that's a bad mistake that Kamala did. And thus the thing with these vibes and not getting the quote unquote influence of people,
right,
and why it is what it is. And I want to show you a clip that I took. This is 2.5 weeks out before the election. This is in West Hartford, Connecticut, just right next to the capital of Connecticut. That was very blue that Kamala won.
Yeah.
So I'm out in West Hartford with the great Sam Anchari and the great Rain Beckett, and I see two sides of the streets yelling at each other. Obviously, you know what I'm referring to. We have a Kamala side and a Trump side, and an unorganized, and a Harris and Trump side, and an unofficial rally.
Yeah, they were just people out and about.
Yeah, so let me show you this clip that I took myself. I'm Vice out here. Look at this. So to paint the picture, we have 3 Kamala supporters and a full block of Trump supporters. This is the moment that I knew Trump was going to win the election. So these are the Kamala supporters, and these are Trump supporters. That's nuts. Oh my God. So as you can see, this was me. That's when I knew Kamala was going to win the election. I held that in my tongue. I held that in my tongue till today. But that's when I knew that Trump is winning this thing, and I should have put my life savings on that. That proves right there that she could never have mastered that influence unless maybe a celebrity was in it. Maybe it was just obviously those who were hardcore Democrats and stuff like that.
Right, yeah.
But this, in the blue state of Connecticut, we saw who had more supporters.
I mean, yeah, and like I said, Virginia and New Jersey, both blue. They both went closer to Trump. She still won, but they were definitely better for Trump than they had been in the past. So yeah, even blue states were shifting red. This, not enough to flip the state, but we're shifting red in this election. Yeah, 100%.
Well, why did that happen?
Why
couldn't Kamala get a bunch of people in her state to fight on? And I'll give you credit to that's just some guy who knows what it was, right. But don't you think that would? Well,
yeah, I mean,
big deal.
I mean, yeah, there's part of it. I think you could go with she did all that in 100 days. Most people still do. I just checked it before I came on here. She's just now the 3rd most famous Democrat, and she wasn't for most of this campaign, even the 3rd most famous Democrat in the country. So didn't have a ton of time. Also, before she was running for president, people generally didn't like her. She was not particularly well liked as vice president. So obviously it went up when she became president candidate. And people were like, all right, well, it's her or him, and I'm voting for her, not him. So her favorability went up just by virtue of being the alternative to Donald Trump. But even Democrats, before she was running against Trump, were like kind of iffy on her. So there's that. I mean, and that's been the case for 4 years. We've known that for 4 years. So I would say that those are probably 2 big things: is not a lot of time, and the time that we did have, like before she ran, she wasn't particularly well liked. Tied to Biden, who is even less well liked than she is. So yeah, no, I mean, but there's also there's a real enthusiasm in the MAGA group, the Trump supporting group, and that, I mean, you can't discount that because he won obviously the election, but he also won the popular vote. He's probably going to have both chambers. He certainly has the Senate; it's already locked, but he might even get both chambers of the House. He picked most of the people on the Supreme Court himself. I mean, he's got literally total power. So yeah, there's clearly an excitement around him because he's got literally everything. He's done it. He's literally taken over. He's got it all. So there you go.
I'm sorry, I just sweated out. I hit Shay Gildress Alexander. Thank you. Sorry. Please bet responsibly. So oh yeah, that's very valid points, and that's just what with Kamala. And by the way, I'm saying it right. Is it Kamala or Kamala? Because
it's Kamala.
we'll go with Harris.
It doesn't
With
matter anymore.
Harris,
No,
yeah,
let me stop.
yeah,
Let me stop.
yeah, it doesn't
Let
matter
me stop.
anymore, right?
No,
Yeah, but
Um,
since you asked, that's why I've never corrected you. But since you just asked, it's Kamala. Yeah.
so with Harris, right? And
Hmm.
I just really think that was just my biggest disappointment. Is just
Mm.
with your very valid points, which I agree with. She just, and I don't think this is a woman thing. I really don't. I like,
Mm.
for example, if Michelle Obama ran, we'd be having a different conversation. I really
Hmm.
think that.
I think
I
so
just
too.
think
I
it's
definitely
an
do.
inauthentic person, no
Yeah.
matter who you are. She just the pandering, the getting the celebrities that don't make any sense there. Um, with all due respect to Megan the Stallion and Cardi B, I don't think it made sense to have them there and Megan the Stallion twerking on stage when Trump has the richest man in the world on his side. Not a good call. Um,
Yeah, and
and
I would.
like, and I
Oh, sorry. Go
think
ahead.
again, that's just no, you're good. Just some of these fatal mistakes, and you're just like, "Oh, this. Why we need that person, and that's why I think the long form pods, the Joe Rogan ones, not Club Shay Shay. I love that pod, but that was a nothing interview.
Mm.
The Call Her Daddy wasn't for me, but I still listened to it. I respect it. I learned something,
Mhm.
but it's just taking those risks. Even with Trump too, he had some easy. Andrew Schultz is a nut job. I'll say that. Theo Vaughn's awesome, but he's
Yeah, I mean, you weren't going to learn anything on the Theo Von
yeah.
show.
I think just going on these podcasts that you really could really learn something. Both candidates should have taken the advantage from, and
Mhm.
no network long form's doing that. And
Mhm.
that's where the podcast comes through.
Yeah,
And it's just like
no, on that we
it's
agree.
disappointing.
Yeah, on that we agree. The podcast has a very strong future in politics, or it has to. Otherwise, whatever party is refusing to do it is going to lose every time, without without much difficulty either. Um, but yeah, no, that's that. That's something that they have to figure out. But like I said, you pointed out in that response that you watched Call Her Daddy, and it was a good interview, but not for you, right? You said
Yeah,
that.
and that's why, and I said right away from the start on the women's rights, I completely, completely,
Hmm.
completely do not want women's rights taken away. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. Some of these conservative points that are
Hmm.
made against that. And I just completely disagree with what the Supreme Court did with Roe v. Wade, and just on a moral standpoint, and
Hmm.
you know, with the mixture of being safe if you are sexually active, being smart while you're sexually active. But we know people make mistakes, and that's nothing wrong with that. And there are people who are choosing not to be responsible. And then there's the most horrific, horrible reason is when a crime is being committed
Hmm.
amongst that, which obviously justice must be served there. And if so be something has to happen, that has to happen there. So that's the one strong thing I got. I mean, I always felt that, but I especially got that, and I actually even commended Kamal on that. I thought it came out very authentic, but it didn't go viral. But
Right. Well, I mean,
that's
so
the
here's the
thing.
thing. Apparently, and I can didn't go viral for me either. I don't listen to that show, but apparently a lot of people did see that on TikTok. Again, my wife was bombarded with clips from that, and
Yeah.
that speaks to my point. Like you said, you knew she did this, but not really for you, and that's not an insult on anybody. It's a reality. My wife couldn't not see the Call Her Daddy interview. It was everywhere. You had to seek it out, and you didn't see it ever again. I'm sure. I'm just gonna guess that Schultz or Paul or Rogan appeared on your, various feeds, both of you probably, at least half a dozen times from the moment it was released to election. Like there is very clearly a right wing or a right leaning. I won't say right wing. That people get mad at that. A right leaning media ecosystem, and it has got guys. And the left needs to play on that field. We will not win another election at the national level if we don't play on that field. That's a
Um,
fact. That's a
I
fact.
I think it might even be YouTube. Like I hear what you're saying. It might be like you like I feel like it's reflected in YouTube as well. At some
Hmm.
point, like videos from the White House where like they banned the dislike
Yeah.
thing. And I think the theory around that was that it was because I think I forgot what it was, like Biden videos were getting disliked a lot, or and then they disabled the dislike button.
Yeah.
There's a theory that politics had something to play behind that. And
Maybe, yeah.
even if you saw like the likes and dislikes for the Kamala Harris and Shannon Sharp
Hmm.
interviewed, it was lopsided as far as the dislikes. It might you I think you do bring I think you brought a great point tonight that and your honesty is definitely appreciated.
Indeed.
That the Democratic side needs to maybe make a push towards really reaching out to these young men.
The most popular Democratic podcast right now is ranked at number 50, and it's three former Obama staffers talking about just the most boring specifics about law and about this and about that. And that's, I mean,
Yeah, that's the
listen,
tone deaf part that
I
I
listen.
dislike.
I listen. It's fine. I learn things from it. It's interesting for me, but they don't need me. I'm here.
Well, you guys
They
also
don't
have
need me.
Destiny and XQC. Those are two big
Yeah, and that's what I
content
mean.
creators.
There's people that are there, and like I said, Hassan, but I don't know Destiny as well as I know Hassan. Hassan's problem
Hassan
is
gets
that,
a little bit less respect, honestly,
well,
nowadays.
yeah, but he also, more importantly than even that, is, I mean, and this is just true. He's not ride or die. He'll make fun of the Democratic Party all the time. I've heard him do it. I've heard him do it a lot.
You know,
That's true.
one
And
thing I want to
so,
add,
yeah,
my bad to
no, you're
interrupt,
good.
but I think it's kind of funny. The one joke that people just had in general about Hassan was that he was they said like he was a millionaire socialist or
Hmm.
something like that. Is like he's like a walking hypocrite or something.
Well,
Like that
right,
was like a big thing
I
that
like
they
that.
would say about.
and Bernie got tagged with that when he was running for president, if we remember, in 2020 or 2020 as well.
Mm.
Like, when you're that far left, but you're also fabulously wealthy and have this show and are telling people what to do, something's, their math is not mathing there at that point. That's why you don't need to be that person. That's why, again, that's why I'm saying I frankly ignore that person. And when I said, by the way, when I didn't like the Bernie thing, the reason I didn't like the Bernie thing is not because he doesn't know ball or whatever. It's just the reality is he was speaking in a generalization of, you need to talk to workers, and that's true, you do, but it's specific workers.
Right.
You got to talk to guys, and Sanders is not going to be able to do that, because his message is frankly one that doesn't, I think, resonate with the average normal guy. I don't believe Bernie's. I think he's better messenger. I think people like him, and I think they like some of what he says. But you get into the socialist thing, and it turns off. Everybody's brain says, "I'm out, not in the socialist thing." So you need people who are not socialists. They're just regular old Democrats, but they're not in elected office, and they just interview people and they talk to thought leaders on the left, and they make those thought leaders on the left talk like a human freaking being instead of through academic papers or scientific reports. You know what I mean? Like, we're talking about vaccines here. When Rogan has his vaccine people on, they'll quote what, like two things out of a paper, and then they just vibe with it. Whereas then I'm like, well, actually, if you read all 17 of these, you'll see no one's reading all those. You got to do that. You got to show up on the show and be like, yeah, no, you read a couple of these, and this is pretty much what it says. This number, that number. Now you just vibe with it. That's what you need to do. That's what people listen to. I hate it. And Matt knows I hate the fact that we are a vibes-based society, because that means information doesn't matter. But we are there. We are a vibes-based society. So we need to start catching the vibes real effing fast and pray to God, or whoever you pray to, or don't pray, that we do this fast enough for 2028, provided it's not too late by then, provided the damage is not already done when it comes to some of the things that people are scared about Trump potentially doing.
So our last segment before some final words I have to bring up, right? One of the things that some people feel with left or liberals are very high emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And reacting to tonight's reacting to this week's decision that the American people picked Trump,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people, mostly liberal people, were extremely upset. So we'll pick the viral example of this one. In a traditional sharing of the screen for the tweet cab, we have a woman named at Lexi Vlogs just post this.
Mhm.
Just post this. So, and those listening, you hear this. Look at this.
I'm sorry. No. Why? Why? Do you really hate me that bad?
Okay. And yeah. What the hell is that? And when we have stuff like this, with all due respect to people of a certain group, you kind of add to why people act a certain way because of those high emotions. And I will say, people deal with things differently. People deal with griefs, traumas, emotions differently. Maybe we don't understand, but if you're going through a rough time and this is your way to vent it and let it out and get your peace, do understand that there's also consequences to actions when you do stuff like that. And there's literally hundreds of thousands of videos of people who did not want Trump to win posting those videos. And instead of maybe people reacting to their reaction, instead of maybe the conversation they're looking for and why has the world made me feel this way, people just make fun of it instead.
No, that's true. I mean, there's no reason to post that video.
Yeah,
I
and
I didn't again. I don't find it funny. I think I know. I think I can feel in that video exactly what she's feeling because I've watched women in my life feel very similarly. They didn't react that way, but feel very similarly today, all day, and it's multiple. So I'm not gonna make fun of her feelings, but I am gonna say that the reality is, yeah, if that's the message you put out there, then people who frankly don't give that much of a fuck about your feelings are going to make fun of the fact that you screamed into your camera. So don't film that. You know what I mean? That save that for people who, if you want to scream with your best friend because you both feel like every man in your life has let you down, fine, do that. Just don't film it. Just that doesn't need to be on camera because all that's doing is inviting the people that you're upset with, the men that you're upset with, to jump into your comments and make fun of you again.
and
And
also
women, by the
doesn't
way,
change
but just
their
in
vote.
general, yeah.
No,
Well,
you're
yeah,
right.
exactly.
Yeah.
It does nothing. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't fix anything. It just adds. So now you're already feeling bad. Now you've got to add a ridicule on top of it. So I agree. There's no reason to post that video or any video of a similar vein because you're only going to be met with hostility. We've been doing this a long time. I don't think there's ever been a positive comment on anything that I've ever been in. Um, so I'm telling you, as the liberal who gets called, various things in the comments and in real life, it's never a positive. No one's ever on your side in the comment section. If they comment, it's because they dislike you by and large. So yeah, just don't post something like that when you're feeling that, especially when you're feeling that emotional.
Like I saw something on Reddit today. I saw like some pictures in the subreddit
Mm.
pics.
Yeah.
There were people crying at the Kamala Harris
I mean, I don't think
rally,
that
I
that's
think.
quite as bad
Um
as screaming into your phone on TikTok.
no, yeah. My
Yeah.
thing about it,
Why?
see, my thing about it is that some people, I guess Reddit is like a mostly kind of liberal platform. I like Reddit. I mean,
Yeah, I use Reddit. Yeah.
I feel like it was a lot better back in like the early
Hmm.
2010s, but that's that's another conversation. But and it has nothing to do with politics, by the way. I just feel
Yeah.
like it was a better app back in the day.
Yeah. No, there's a lot
Uh,
of people think that.
yeah. Um, somebody was saying like, "Oh, you're a sociopath if you laugh at these people and make fun of their pain."
Hmm.
Um, damn, man, and it kind of made me feel like I don't know, am I a sociopath for thinking
Yeah.
some like for that TikTok video we just saw? I'm sorry, that made me laugh, bro.
Well,
Am
that's
I really
different
a
than a picture of
sociopath?
someone. That's different than a picture of someone crying. She was screaming at the top of her lungs in her car. It is
Okay,
different. I
okay,
would
I
say
did.
that is different.
I'll
But I
Cool.
will
say
also
if we
say,
get a million views, if I was told you do that, I'll give you 10 million views. Shit, I'll do
yeah, I
that. That's
mean,
the only reason why.
no,
Because
I
like
get
I said,
that.
all we need from our body of work is just one more huge viral video.
I will just say this
So.
though, because I think we're probably going to have some Trump people listening. They're probably, and this might even be a clip talking about this. The reactions. Yeah, some Kamala Harris people cried. I remember the reaction in 2020. I think a lot of Americans forgot or they didn't care, and that's fine. That is their right. But don't come at people for their reaction to this because a whole lot of you, including the guy who just won the presidential election this time around, yeah, reacted a whole lot worse than screaming in your car. Whole lot worse. And there's headstones right down the street here in Arlington that I can take you to if you disagree with me. So there you go.
You talk about January 6th.
Yes, I am.
Well, that's one thing. That's a fair point to point out. It seems that I think that's just another thing with this the clashing of egos. The fact that clearly nobody can not nobody, a lot of people very passionate can't take this L. With all due respect, but both sides. Yeah, that's a fair point to say that we have these people screaming, and then we have people causing January 6th.
And
Clearly,
those are different.
Immature reasons for both, but that's also not all Trump supporters either, and that's also not
No,
all Kamala
Harris
people
supporters. Yeah,
either.
correct.
But it's the idea of just accepting what happened, and clearly, that's where this. I think if we're gonna do start wrapping this up, is the idea of just um you know seeing what's next after. I think it's fair. We had a productive conversation and both sides were different and all various opinions were said. But I think whether it's the way we were raised, whether it's the way we went through life and stuff, that we can move on from this. We said our piece, we made the content with it, and we're gonna have both. I think both sides can benefit from it, and both sides will hate what either of us said. But the thing is that we can have this productive conversation and just move on from this. As I said, we never took this personally. We don't hate each other. We're gonna text tomorrow about something silly.
Probably, yeah.
And
As we
then
usually
there's
do.
more ideas. But I think my last thing to hit at both sides, just like I said, I think it's just ego and pride. Like, just why do we get to this way? And I don't want to play my one side over the other, but I just don't understand. I feel like we were raised better that if things aren't going to go our way, that we just have to move on and stuff like that. It's easier than others, but at least the three of us, I think, at least get it. Why don't millions of others don't?
That's a great
Well,
question.
I think I mean when we're talking in a group chat like this and we're just like sharing our experiences and sharing what we feel. There's no agenda behind what I'm saying. There's no agenda behind what Ryan's saying. There's no agenda behind what Matt's saying. There's no ulterior motives, there's no backdoor deals being done where we're getting money.
Yeah.
Like
Right,
Magic
no.
Mind's not giving us
Yeah,
extra
just
things.
how we
I don't
feel.
know who
Yeah.
Magic Mind supports that.
Yeah, we didn't ask
yeah,
Magic Mind. They're not, yeah. Not involved
yeah.
in this.
We're all just talking honestly and we're just we're trying to pick each other's minds and uh put out a conversation that people will be able to take in, listen to, review, and come with their own conclusion. Maybe we help somebody uh think one way or the other. And that's the only purpose. That's the one goal that we have here. We're not trying to do anything else but that. Just keep it real. And I think that's the main thing about being productive and having a productive conversation, keeping it real. And that's what we did tonight. And I appreciate y'all for that. And I appreciate y'all having me come on
Absolutely.
camera and talk for these special
Absolutely.
moments.
All the time.
Yeah, and again, just to do my wrap up before Matt sends us home. Yeah, obviously you could. I mean, like Matt said, I'm gonna text both these guys tomorrow. We're gonna talk about the next show. We're gonna do many more shows well into the future. Where I'm gonna differ one last time from my co-hosts here. I know right now, for a lot of people, that's not possible, and you're gonna hear from others that that's somehow wrong. They're going to hear that it's wrong, that you can't get past this. I don't believe that. And again, I'm speaking as someone who is already past it. I already have said I have absolutely no intention on talking about this election ever again. This was my one and only day to do it. And the reason for that, just in case anyone's curious, is because America voted. And maybe this is pessimistic. Maybe this is sadistic. Maybe this election really did break my humanity. I hope we get everything he promised. I hope he fulfills every single promise because, like Maya Angelou said, when somebody tells you are, believe them. I hope he does every single one of them. And I'll be there if and when he does to take my friends who are shocked and comfort them. And your friends might ask you to do the same. Your family might ask you to do the same. You don't have to follow by my example. You can tell them, I told you this before it was a problem. You don't get my help now that it's a problem. So I'm going to say that. And I've never said that before. I've always thought it was ridiculous to lose friendships and family relationships over an election. I always thought that. And again, I personally, my personal code of ethics does not let me do that because I think there's good in all people. I really do. Even people that I disagree with, even people that I find dumb. There's good in all people, and you deserve to know the good in all people. And I hope a lot of you choose to do that. But don't let the people bully you who are going to tell you that if you can't, it's wrong. Because for some people in particular, there's men, I'm just going to say, there's men who love you, who stab you directly in the back because hopefully in 4 years, gas prices will be cheaper. And that's facts. So, again, it's not all of them, but there's enough of them that if you have a feeling some type of way about that, I think you should let yourself feel those feelings. And that's why I want to end it. So, bit of a downer before we do the wrap up, but I think that needs to be said because you're going to hear the opposite plenty. So there's the pro case. You heard that con case, here's the pro case. Now you decide. It's up to every individual.
Nicely put.
Well, we got your back. And yeah, everyone's
Yes.
entitled to their opinion and feelings. But as I said before, and hold up. And as I said before, that man, isn't this music beautiful? I think that's all that matters. There really are good people out there for you. There's definitely some who aren't. But at least we're here for you. And we will still be your friend. And we love our family. And beyond what a government tries to say, what you can and cannot do, all that matters is that those people in your life will be that person for you. If I name it, and I thank you, Brian, I thank you, Dolo. I'll call you Alex on this one, because you're Alex in this one. You guys are my guys. And Jose, the ultimate podcast people. And even those people, past and present, giving me a headache, I still appreciate you. But regardless, though, in all seriousness, what a time, what an election. But this chapter is now over. Let's move on. Let's be safe. It ain't gonna be easy, but just know you got somebody who has your back. My name is Matt Brown. I'm the host of Productive Conversations. I will see you next week with a whole new slate of shows.